अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. I'm your host Manisha Pande. I'm filling in for Abhinandan Sekri, who's in Dehradun. I think there's a Founders Day, something of the Doon School. Usually it's around this time, so he's there. He's going to be chilling in the cooler climes of Doon and certainly the cleaner air of Dehradun. And I'm going to be taking on the hosting duties for News Laundry's premium weekly news podcast, NL Hafta, this week. I'll quickly introduce our panel. We've had a pretty action-packed week. I think the biggest news of the year broke in this week, but we'll get to all of that. In-house, of course, we have Raman Kirpal with us.
Hello.
Welcome, Raman sir. We have Anand Vardhan.
Hello.
Jayashree joining us from Chennai, and we believe it's not too rainy anymore. Now
It's horrifyingly sunny, yes. Hello.
And we have Sherbir Panag joining us from Delhi. Welcome, Sherbir.
Hi, Manisha. Thank you for having me.
Sherbir is a financial crimes and corporate governance lawyer. He is acting as defense counsel in some of India's most high-profile cases. He also comes with a deep understanding of issues surrounding Punjab, India-Canada relations, the Sikh diaspora, and Khalistan. And this is precisely why we have him this week, because there's just so much with relations to India and Pakistan that has happened this week. Let's quickly get the headlines, Jayashree, and then we'll jump right into our conversation. Sherbir, before we started recording the show, I was telling you about this little segment I saw on Sky News with this person called Muninder Singh from Sikh Federation Canada. It's a sort of an interview. And before we get into the whole diplomatic shit show that has happened this week, there is this fundamental question I had, which is, when you listen to some of these Sikh Federation, and this gentleman very openly said, I am a Khalistani, and so was Nijjar, Bhai Nijjar as he calls him. They just sound so deluded. The way he's talking about India is as if he's stuck in 84, actually. I mean, that's the way to describe it. There is this hyperbole around genocide against Sikhs for the past 4 decades. And you have this person being platformed, of course, in a mainstream news channel. So how do you understand this whole Khalistan fixation of the diaspora?
So, Manisha, that's an excellent question. And in some way, that's a description of the problem we are facing. The idea, there is no resonance with the idea of Khalistan in India and in Punjab, and Punjab turned over a bloody chapter of its past and moved on. And that difficult period has no real resonance. I think the challenge is that every now and then somebody takes looks at a keychain or a stray poster and says, "Oh, we saw there's a Pindrawale image out there." I don't think that's none of us, and I've said this multiple times, that in the new generation, even as far as the old generation is concerned, the idea of Punjab, India, and being Sikh, they're all sort of one common identity for those of us behind. The diaspora is an entirely different question. And I think the problem at the diaspora level is sort of threefold. I think first and foremost.
So now you come to the current standoff between India and Canada. There are serious allegations that, there were these designated, for us, they're terrorists. Canada calls them pro-Khalistan activists. And there are serious charges that have been leveled that with the Indian agencies, we have colluded to finish these guys off. Even if you dismiss these charges aside, the kind of rhetoric around this that we've seen since this news has broke is a sort of a celebration among those who support the Modi government that, yes, we have to teach our enemies a lesson. Is there an overreaction also from the India side? And could there have been a better way to deal with these irritants, quote unquote?
If we start breaking this up, let's look at it from the Canadian side. We have a poor track record on terrorism. We have calling Mr. Nijjar in whatever capacity a local preacher is also like calling Mr. Osama bin Laden a family man. Some of this we can't have this. There should be no nuance when it comes to terrorism. So we've had this poor track record, which was not looked into, and I think to some extent it was ignored. I think the translation to us and its impact in India, and suddenly the fact that for so many years there were no conversations about this, and all of a sudden conversations have kicked off. One, of course, was Prime Minister Trudeau's visit to India and the fairly questionable people who came along with him, or who he wanted. There's some reports about how he wanted several others to join in on that list. But I think we can't also take away what happened what changed with the farmers' protest. And then in moments like this, it's not like we live in the most peaceful neighborhood, Manisha. You have Pakistan sitting right there observing all of this. They'll also take advantage of this and see that they understand, that every second household in Punjab has family in Canada, and that this is a means of adding fuel to fire. So we've had multiple elements that have contributed to the sort of what I would call the spotlighting of this fairly obscure Khalistan claim by a fringe and lunatic elements outside India.
Can I just jump in though? I feel like even if we set aside, so I say we take as a given Canada's very poor track record, which is, widely known and available, and also the fact that, how this sort of point was reached. But I think what has happened this week, so see, what happened is that Canada has claimed credible evidence. India has put back and said no, and then this entire
Canada started with claiming intelligence.
Yeah, it said intelligence
in fact evidence, and that's been an interesting movement on the.
I think Canada had said last September it had intelligence, but not evidentiary proof, and that's when it asked India to work together. We look at your security services, whatever. At least this is what Trudeau has claimed, and India said no. And parallel to this is also the fact that India has agreed to appoint that high-level committee or whatever to investigate charges in the US about the plot to assassinate Pannun. So
yeah, and they've arrested one guy.
And now, this morning, or I guess it yesterday, they said that they arrested that one guy who was allegedly an Indian official who communicated with whatever. So, but I just think, so the question is, for me, is how credible are these claims that India did actually try and assassinate a man on foreign soil, or these allegations of collusion? And like we said, we don't have the evidence. But I would say what I want to talk about is that, see, Australia had expelled 4 Indians for spying. I think this was in June. Spying is fine. It's what you're supposed to do when you're part of the intelligence, part of RAW and so on. But getting caught means you're a bit of an idiot. And this is at one level of severity. Now, the other thing that I think we should talk about is this Pannun assassination plot. The US has very categorically stated and produced evidence that India tried to use some higher gangster to assassinate someone on US soil. It tried and failed. And in Nijjar's case, Canada is saying that India tried and succeeded. Now, there are many contradictions here. For me, there are 2 sort of theories that could explain this. And the first theory is that everyone is conspiring against India, because since India is such a great rising superpower, all the 5 eyes, the US, the UK, Australia, Canada, everyone is conspiring to pull us down. And seems a little far-fetched, which only brings us to the second theory to me, which is that...
On that note, please guys, subscribe to newslaundry.com. We have some amazing ground reporting that's happened this week by Avdesh from Badech, and also, of course, Srinivasan Jain's report from Israel. All the 3 episodes are out. We've been able to do this thanks to your support, so please continue supporting us. There'll be a QR code on your screen right now. So if you like what we do, and if you want to watch the full version of this amazing banter on YouTube behind the paywall, please subscribe. You'll get access to the entire podcast.
I think when it comes to Canada, let's go by the approaches taken by both governments. I think the US and India acted maturely and responsibly in terms of in the corridor of their conversations, and that's much what friends do. Intelligence operations go wrong all the time. We aren't the first. Where if it is one, that is that an intelligence operation has gone wrong, but when there are friendly nations, you sort of have constructive conversation. And I think to some extent that constructive conversation with the United States happened. On the other hand, that constructive conversation with Canada did not happen.
I want to come to Anand now. So exactly, like there is this thing of intelligence operations going wrong. Friendly nations tend to solve these issues behind the door. And certainly you don't have a country naming home minister. Like we know that Washington Post has named Amit Shah. And now there's this whole talk in India that Canada is the new Pakistan, except it's not, right? We have an $8.4 billion trade relationship with them. We have students who study there. We have a diaspora. We're certainly way more in sync and collaborating with each other than with Pakistan. How do you see this diplomatic fallout? Like what could have led to this? And you'll have to theorize quite a bit because a lot of it is not in the public domain. But according to you, what went, how did things go so south?
I think we can look at it from the lens of international relations then and the fallout. First is the domestic political imperatives in Canada are important here. And second is why India responded differently to the US charge and the Canadian one. So first, you see the significance that Mr. Trudeau attaches to New Democratic Party that led by what is his name? Anyway, so that is important for him. But there is also one thing that in Canada we have this Political Interference Commission, and its findings in last few months were more about China, that there has been Chinese interference in the political process, particularly electoral process of Canada. But Trudeau's approach has been that yes, he admits that there has been Chinese interference, but deflect it to India also and make India the key interfering force in the Canadian politics.
Raman sir, in all of this, you have Lawrence Bishnoi enter the scene. And again, very outlandish right now. It's a claim by the Canadians that he is somehow in touch with the diplomats, and the diplomats there have been feeding him information on Khalistanis, and the crime syndicate has been going on a killing spree. Meanwhile, NIA last year had actually filed a charge sheet saying that Lawrence Bishnoi has Khalistani connections with Babbar Khalsa and all. How is this 31-year-old, I think, sitting in jail since 2015, been able to create this international racket?
No, Bishnoi's story began with the fact that he belongs to a community which worships the animal black buck, which was killed by Salman Khan. So this is how his story began.
Yeah,
and he issued some videos initially that Salman Khan should say, come to the temple and he should say sorry. Otherwise, the community is not going to spare him. So this is how his story began, and he wasn't a big criminal when he was arrested in 2015. And since 2015, he is in the jail, and I think he has claimed 5 big murders, which happened when he was inside the jail. First in Tihar jail, and then again he was transferred to Sabarmati jail, where you have hundreds of policemen, and the temple and the prison itself is layered into it is a layered prison. So he is instructing. I mean, if we believe all these claims first of all comes. I mean, I have seen only these claims are coming from the police. The police is saying that the 3 or 4 persons who have been arrested, they have a connection with Bishnoi. This is how the media is also reporting. We don't have any access to Bishnoi.
बस मुफ्त में इतना ही मिलेगा. For the full uncut podcast, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free. The best way to listen to The Hafta and indeed all our podcasts is through the Newslaundry app. You can download the app by clicking on the links given in the show notes. So do download our app and get the best podcast experience. And also pay for news and support a new news media ecosystem that Newslaundry is trying to encourage, where we are accountable to you because we run on contributions that you make. We don't take government ads, we don't take corporations ads, so that news serves the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Subscribe to Newslaundry, click on the link in the show notes below and proudly say, I pay to keep news free.